I get full well that there's nothing the left doesn't want to take over. That's the nature of the left. But how did they work their way into the churches? How wouldn't that come about?
Yeah, it's been a deliberate effort over many years, and they realize that the American church is one of the longest standing institutions in our country's history and one of the most important institutions of voluntary association. So the left now has intentionally misrepresented the gospel, saying things such as Jesus was a socialist, or Christianity and Marxism are directly tied together, or capitalism is anti-Christian. None of these things are actually supported by the gospel. In fact, there's evidence to show the exact opposite, that Marxism is directly at odds with the two of the Ten Commandments and the teachings of Jesus Christ. And so we see so many young Christians, though, that are gravitating further and further to the left, thinking that they are following the teachings of Christianity, when in reality, those principles are at direct odds with each other.
Charlie, one of the things I like so much about Turning Point is their focusing, or your focus, on colleges and universities. I have long screamed at people on the right that if you're not taking care of the education system or trying to get the left out of it, then the rest of this is just, you're moving around the deck chairs on the Titanic. The left completely owns the education. They're pumping out new socialists every year, and we just sit around and yell about taxes and spending. Not that those issues aren't important. My question is, are we making headway in the universities? Are we slowly chipping away at it? Are we just negotiating the terms of surrender? What's the status?
Well, look, at Turning Point USA, we've been playing offense in this culture war for the last couple of years, and we're now present on over 1,400 high school and college campuses across the country, educating students around the values of American exceptionalism, talking about how America is indeed the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world, the Constitution, free enterprise, these ideas that are not always talked about at our university campuses. What I find to be most important, though, is that we as conservatives are then now able to have a voice on these campuses. There are so many more students that feel silenced, they feel ostracized because of their conservative beliefs. And now we are giving students an opportunity to speak freely, to actually have this kind of freedom of association that far too often conservators are not able to find on college campuses.
Let's switch gears a little bit here. Illegal immigration. It's a big topic for me. It always has been, because very similar to the college argument, the Democrats want that border wide open because they feel like they're importing new voters. I don't sit here and pretend like Democrats actually give a crap about the welfare of any illegal immigrant they're allowing into the United States of America. I realize President Trump has made headway on this, but the numbers, Charlie, still look awful. We're 100,000 a month. What can we do to slow this down? Is there anything remotely bipartisan anymore that can help slow down and stem the tide of illegal immigration?
I wish. I mean, look, immigration is probably the biggest issue in America, and legal and illegal immigration that needs to be tackled. And not only are there 100,000 people still illegally crossing into our country, the southern border, illegally each month, we're also granting over 1 million plus green cards every single year as well. And so, look, America's a generous country. We're a benevolent country. We should be proud of that. But there are limits to generosity. There are limits to a country that is $22 trillion in debt. And having a respectable, logical conversation around limitations of a country should be something that both parties should be having right now. Quite frankly, when you have the problems that we have in our inner cities, and particularly the Black community, try to explain to me why we should have 100,000 people illegally enter into our country every single month, over 1 million illegally, and 1 million legally, when a lot of our inner cities are in total disrepair. Our public schools aren't working. Literacy rates are alarmingly and shockingly low. Fatherlessness rates is upwards of 70%. We have a lot of problems that we need to solve. And that's not to say that we should turn our back on the idea that America is a generous country, but I think our generosity is being taken advantage of. I think our generosity is now being taken advantage of by far too many people, and especially as wealthy as our country is, we have to think to ourselves, we're also $22 trillion in the hole. We're $22 trillion in debt, and the amount of guns, drugs, child sex trafficking that happens on the southern border is horrendous. It's a human rights crisis. And I'm afraid that the Democrats are not just turning a blind eye to it, they are encouraging and subsidizing the flow of illegal immigrants into our country. And it's a very, very big issue that the president has to continue to tackle.
That is a fact, and it really is a human rights issue. Anybody who's ever spent any time down on the southern border, as I sadly have, you hear stories down there that absolutely make you sick to your stomach. It's disgusting. I want to address the black voting population issue right now. Now, we have these polls coming out recently, Charlie, that say 33, 34% black approval rating for President Trump. Now, I'm not naive. I wasn't born yesterday. I don't believe those numbers, but I do believe they're extremely high. Obviously, when you look at the record low black unemployment numbers, when you look at the prison reform, I understand Donald Trump is most likely the most popular Republican in the black community for some time. Where do you think those numbers really lie, or do you actually believe 33, 34%?
Well, look, I think that they're higher than what a lot of the pundits would ever leave you to believe. But, we've done a lot of work at Turning Point USA through our Black Leadership Summit and having some incredible Black voices be leaders in our organization, such as Candace Owens, David Harris Jr., Rob Smith, Terrence Williams, and many others. Let's just pretend for a second, Jesse, that it's half that. Let's pretend it's 17%. That's still higher than any recent Republican president would ever have received. In fact, if President Trump wins 17%, he will win states that we would never have imagined a Republican president winning. In fact, he could win states like New Jersey. I mean, he would win Michigan by 5 or 6 points. So there's something very exciting happening because the black community has been so poorly served by the Democrats for so long. President Trump has delivered record unemployment success, record low black poverty, opportunity zones, prison reform and criminal justice reform. The president has delivered so much success for a community that has been damaged by the Democrats. And now President Trump should be getting higher approval rating because of it. And it's amazing to see. And kudos for him for going where Republicans have told them where it was traditionally impossible for conservatives and Republicans to win.